Thank
Yeah.
you. All right, thank you.
So, yeah, so we looked at internal and external relationships, and you remember what internal and external relationship is. When we are talking about internal relationship, we mean the relationship procurement has with the other functions within the organization, and even internal sources also using functions within the organization instead of using uh, suppliers outside, because those functions within the organization are also supplies. They are internal supplies. So do we use these internal supplies or we use external suppliers? We looked at the advantages of using an internal supplier and as well as the disadvantages. And we did same for external relationships. Then we looked at, you know, the relationship spectrum, the relationship spectrum, and look at the types of relationship on the relationship spectrum, starting from adversarial through arm's length, transactional through tactical relationship, single sourcing, outsourcing, strategic alliance, partnership to co-destiny. And we learned that some of the relationships tilt towards the competitive aspect or the competitive side of the spectrum, and others tilt towards the collaborative, you know, side of the spectrum. Um, so we looked at the various types of relationships, and it's important to know the arrangement because you can be asked to arrange them appropriately. And we look at um, the very nature of these types of relationships. Then we also look at the relationship life cycle, the relationship life cycle, how we qualify our suppliers or pre-qualify our suppliers, how we segment them and manage risk, and how we appraise their performance and develop rules that are worth developing. So how do we qualify them? We looked at the use of the Carter tendencies. We appraise the supplier's capability or competence. We looked at the supplier's capacity. We looked at their commitment to quality and control processes. We also looked at cash, cost, consistency, culture, claim, and communication. Yes, these are the 10 C's, Carter's 10 C's. And I explained them in a manner that will be clearly understood. Then we also looked at how we could segment our suppliers using the project metrics, using the um, you know Pareto analysis and all that, and how we can manage risk. We can manage risk with our suppliers because we need to work with our suppliers to manage our all supply chain risk. Very, very important. Then we manage the performance of our suppliers as well. And how do we appraise their performance? By using key performance indicators. And here we are looking at the safety, we are looking at quality, delivery, and even with their cost performance and their environmental performance as well. Okay, and even their social capital, how they relate with to their workers. Yes, how they relate with their workers. Very important. So it's like appraising the social aspect of the supplier. Yes, and these are all called uh, key performance indicators. Yes, these are key performance indicators that shows that the supplier is um, performing. Okay, those that have done, L4M5 or L5M4, they know that safety, quality, delivery are all called success factors. They are called success factors. And the bullet points under them are the key performance indicators. Key performance indicators. Then, if the supplier performs so well after appraising his or her performance, um, you retain those that you need to retain, and those are the ones that you may want to develop. Those that do not perform, you may want to help them. If they are still not performing, you you just let them go, and that is where the phasing out is. So if you look at the relationship life cycle, there is a point where you onboard the suppliers, and there is a point where you phase them out. They Because they are not performing. Okay, then we looked at in learning outcome 1.2 how we could appraise portfolio analysis techniques to assess relationship in supply chain. So we looked at Pareto analysis because we need to segment our suppliers and adopt the right relationship with them. We cannot treat all our suppliers the same way. No, some require transactional relationships, some also require some level of partnership. So we need to know how we can categorize them and adopt the right kind of relationship with each category of supply. And we can use the Pareto analysis to do that. So we looked at the Pareto analysis, how we could use it to segment our inventory and even our supply and adopt the right relationship with our vital fuel supply. So we looked at the three categories, A, B, and C. The A are our vital fuel suppliers. The B category of suppliers are our normal suppliers. And the C category are our trivial meaning. It means that they supply us all right, but what they supply us do not account for, a significant, expenditure. Okay, so we do not waste much time on them. But those suppliers that account for about 80% of the company's expenditure are the ones that we may want to have a closer relationship with, because if we are able to secure any savings with these vital few suppliers, the savings, even if it's 1% or 2%, could be very significant. Yes, 1% of 1 million or 2% of 1 million US dollars. It's not a small money. It's not small money. So we would want to look at that. Yes, we can use it to segment our supply, but we learned that it is a one-dimensional tool. It is not a portfolio technique because it is one-dimensional. It only looks at the expenditure and does not look at the risk associated with the item that we are talking about. It does not look at the risk. It only looks at expenditure. Okay, so we looked at that, and we also looked at the Kraujic model, the Kraujic metrics. The Kraujic metrics. And if you don't see the Kraujic model, you may see supplier positioning metrics. Supplier positioning metrics or model. Buyers use this model to segment their their suppliers, and know which management decision to take on them or for each category of supply. Yeah, so it was developed by Kraujic, and they call it Kralich. That's the correct pronunciation, but we usually call it Kraujic. Okay, so we need to we looked at this very model, which has two dimensions: cost impact and risk impact. So we are not just looking at the cost or the importance of the item, but we are looking at the risk associated with the item or even the supply of those items. Okay, so that we can adopt the right relationship with them. And we learned that for strategic suppliers, we need to pay critical attention to them, and they qualify for partnership types of relationship. For bottleneck suppliers, we can have a closer tactical relationship with them, medium to long-term commitment. Then with routine suppliers, we can have a transactional relationship with them because the items they supply is of low cost and also low risk. And when we talk about risk here or complexity of the supply market, we are referring to the scarcity of the item or the suppliers of those items. So for strategic suppliers, they are strategic because they are just a few, maybe 2 or 3 suppliers with, sophisticated systems. And these are the suppliers that have what it takes to deliver the solution you need. And there are not many. So you can't use competitive bidding for strategic suppliers. You can only negotiate with them. So we looked at that and leverage suppliers also. So please, you can mute. I think. Thank you. It's for your own good, so that when you are listening to the audio, you won't have any distraction. Okay, so leverage suppliers. We also learned that leverage suppliers, yes, their cost impact is high, risk associated with them is low. And here you can also use competition, or you can develop a relationship with them. Yes, if you read other literature, you will learn that because leverage suppliers are many, and what they have is what you also need. You can choose to develop a closer relationship with them. Yes, you can choose to develop a closer relationship with them, and you benefit more instead of having a transactional type of relationship with them. Okay, so it could even be single source and or partnership. They don't qualify, but maybe a more collaborative relationship like closer tactical or single source relation, depending on the organization. But most people would use competitive bidding, which is more of transactional. Okay. Then we also looked at the supplier preferencing model. And this supplier preferencing model is what our suppliers use to segment us as customers. We use Krajic to segment our suppliers. These suppliers also use the supplier preferencing model to segment us as buyers or their customers. And we as buyers would always want to be core to our suppliers. We would want our suppliers to see us as core customers or development customers. Yes. We don't want them to see us as exploitable and nuisance customers. So we need to know how our suppliers see us. We need to know how to see us, and so that we can increase our attractiveness when necessary and also increase the relative value of the business when necessary. Okay, so we looked at this. And then we also mentioned that it's as a buyer, you should always be seen as either a core customer or a development customer. It is riskier, find yourself in the position of an exploitable customer and a nuisance customer because the supplier delivery or delivery performance is very poor. I can also say supplier security is poor. Yes. Well, if you are a nuisance customer, the supplier will always fail you because you are the least on their list of customers. They may even want to eliminate or remove your name from their database because you don't bring much value to the company. So it's risky being a nuisance customer. And I don't think anyone can stand it if a partner sees you as a nuisance. You have to change quickly. It's dangerous. So we also looked at the market management metrics. that marries the project metrics and the supplier preferencing metrics. So we can see a superimposition of the project metrics or of the supplier preferencing metrics on the project metrics. It means that we need to align our perception. The fact that we see our suppliers as strategic suppliers, does not mean that they see us as core customers. So we need to make that clear. And it's with the market management metrics that we can do that. So you may see a supplier as a strategic supplier, but the supplier may be seeing you as a nuisance customer and it's dangerous, or an exploitable customer. It's dangerous. So we need to align our perception. We see them as strategic, and they should also see us as core or development. That is what we want. That is our desirable position. But if they see us as nuisance or exploitable, we need to get to close to them and know why they see us the way they see us, so that if there are any action plans to take to enhance our attractiveness and the relative value of our business, we will do that. We will do that. Then in learning outcome 1.3, we looked at competitive strategies, sources of competitive advantage. The sources of competitive advantage. We looked at Porter's generic strategy. That's an organization may adopt a cost leadership strategy or a differentiation strategy or a focus strategy. Yes, if you want to compete, you may adopt these three strategies. And cost leadership is trying to be the most cost-effective organization. And we know our customers always want low cost. So if you want to be an organization or the supplier who offers low cost to your customers, then you have to do a lot. You have to do value engineering, effective negotiation, low cost country sourcing, global sourcing, among others, to be the cost leader. Then differentiation. If you want to differentiate your offering, then innovation is very important. Investment in research and development, source them from a high cost country. Like these Italian shoes and all that. Yeah, they are very expensive. And organizations may adopt a differentiation strategy also. And then we look at focus. So the difference between the focus and the ones that I just explained is that cost leadership targets the broad market. Differentiation targets the broad market. But focus does not target the broad market. So we have cost leadership focus or cost focus and differentiation focus. So the cost focus targets a niche within the market. So a small group of people within the broad market. So you can adopt low cost, for these category of, customers, or this group of customers, small group of customers, and do same for differentiation. So I explained that. And I mentioned also that an organization can adopt a cost leadership strategy and a differentiation strategy. So hybrid. You can adopt the two or even the three. Now, if you adopt all these three and you fail to still achieve the competitive advantage you so desire, then we can say you are stuck in the middle. You are stuck in the middle. So being stuck in the middle means that you've adopted cost leadership strategy, differentiation, and focus, and you are still not, achieving your competitive advantage. We also mentioned that adopting the strategies isn't enough. You need to also have a very good human resource management system in place. So your staff, you develop skills, you invest in your human resource, you develop their talent and all that. It's also value added. Your culture as an organization. Some have the risk management culture, some have the quality culture, and even the structure of the organization is very, very important. You having certain processes and practices that makes you unique. Even your intellectual property, you having access to capital that your custom or your competitors may not have access to. You having access to um, some natural resources that your competitors may not have access to, and even technology, you know, puts you in a different position. So it's very, very important. The strategies alone is not enough. Then we also looked at the value chain. We looked at um, the primary activities and the secondary activities or the support activities. Then the 5 rights of procurement. We also looked at that, and we looked at the right price, the right place, the right time, the right quantity, and the right quality. As procurement people, when sourcing, we need to look at these 5 things. Of course, there are others, like the right sourcing approach. Do we use competitive bidding? Do we use negotiation? Do we use competitive dialogue? Do we use restricted sourcing? Do we use single source? So using the right sourcing approach is also very important. Even the right relationship. Do we adopt transactional relationship with a particular kind, supplier, or do we adopt partnership? Knowing which supplier you should adopt a particular type of relationship with is also very important, and not just the 5 rights. There are other rights. There are other rights, and we will learn them in other models. Okay, then we also looked at Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces, and I explained them, and the people factors. The people factors. So we looked at people factors, how we can use these factors to understand the environment. I explained the micro environment, the internal environment, and the macro environment. And I mentioned that the, Porter's 5 forces is used to analyze the industry or our immediate environment or micro environment. The immediate environment is outside the organization, and that is where our suppliers are, our distributors are, our competitors are. They are in the micro environment. So we use the Porter's 5 forces to analyze the intensity of competition or the degree of competition in that industry. Then staple factors or staple model is used to understand the macro environment or the wider environment, which looks at the political, the social, technological, economic, environmental, legal or legislative, and ethical as well. Same in chapter 1, we are still in chapter 1. We looked at the sources of added value that can be achieved through supply chain relationships. Yes, we learned that relationships require investment. And I used the Atkinson and Sneota model. That Sneota and Atkinson are saying that if you claim you have a relationship with a supplier, then there should be what we call resource tie. There should be activity links and actor bond. It means you are investing in resources. You are co-investing in the relationship. You are doing things together. And once you start doing that, you'll be reaping what is called return on relationship investment, which may be qualitative. Yes, it's sometimes difficult to quantify the benefits you get from investing in, those kinds of relationships. And here, you would agree with me that we would only invest in partnership relationships, partnership and co-destiny. In our sourcing relationship, the level of investment may be minimal. But it's in partnership that we do a lot of investment. And we know the benefits, quality improvements, and even enhancing our market share, amongst others, minimizing our stock or the cost of holding inventory, among others. So we looked at that and also looked at the sources of added value, and our 5 rights are also the same as the sources of added value. we can use that. So we look at pricing and cost management. We looked at improving quality. Yes, we looked at even time and quantity is the same as our 5 rights and place considerations as well. Then we looked at the link between organizations and supply network. Yes, the link between organizations and supply network, or the relationship between organizations and supply network. If a supply chain wants to enhance its competitive advantage, then there's a degree to which uh, there should be some kind of collaboration among supply chain partners. Yes, we must all have a collaborative attitude towards one another, so we can develop successful relationships with our supply chain partners. And this is what makes us more competitive. So if we want to eliminate waste in our supply chain and become lean, then there should be a high level of integration among supply chain partners. If we even want to be agile and flexible, we still need some kind of collaboration among these supply chain partners. Then in chapter 2, we look at achieving value for money, how we can achieve value for money. And I mentioned that one way we can achieve value for money is competitive bidding. It's through competition that we achieve value for money. It's through competition. Yes, we also looked at the National Audit Office's uh, explanation of value for money. They say value for money hinges on 4 things: economy, it means spending less; efficiency, spending well; effectiveness, spending wise; and equity. Okay, so we looked at all these 4, and SIFT also gave us their own definition of value for money. They said it's fitness for purpose, quality, total lifetime cost, risk, and environmental and sustainability issues. So when you do all these things, you can say you have achieved value for money. And I defined value for money as the optimum combination of whole life cost and quality. That is a public sector definition for value for money. Then we looked at the procurement cycle, yes, and how we can identify suppliers and select them. We will do this properly in ethical and responsible procurement. And I doubt if they would ask you a lot of questions on it here, because they will do it in ethical and responsible procurement. But you still need to know how organizations have identified their suppliers. We can do internet searches, we can do trade fairs and exhibitions. Yes, we can look at, even through recommendations, or networking, we can identify suppliers. We can identify suppliers in our own database, amongst others. Uh-huh. So there are so many ways we can identify suppliers. Our internet search, when you go to the internet and you want suppliers for a particular item, you can get a lot of supplies. Then we also looked at competitive bidding, how and when we should do competitive bidding, the factors we need to consider. If there are so many suppliers in the market, you can do competitive bidding. If there are just a few suppliers, you can't do it, because it's only 3 suppliers you have on the market. So you may want to do negotiation. Yes, if you need the requirement urgently, you can also not do competitive bidding, because it takes some time. Competitive bidding is time consuming. So if you need urgent requirements, competitive bidding isn't the way to go. Okay, so unless you have enough time, then you can do competitive bidding. Now, if cost is your focus or price is your focus, then you can do competitive bidding. But if price is not what you are looking at, but quality, then you may want to choose another option. Yes, very important. And we also looked at request for information and request for proposal. Yes, request for information and request for proposal. And we looked at the selection and award criteria in the public sector. the types of tendering. We looked at open tendering, restricted tendering, competitive bidding with negotiation, competitive dialogue, and innovative partnership procedure. Very important. So in the public sector here in Ghana, we have single sourcing, we have competitive bidding, national competitive bidding, international competitive bidding. We have restricted sourcing, yes, and so competitive bidding, single sourcing, restricted sourcing, basically. Then, but in UK they are more advanced, so they have a lot. They have innovative partnership procedure, competitive dialogue, and these require a lot of stakeholder involvement. And at the end of the day, what we need is a supplier who can prove himself as the most economically and advantageous tenderer. Yes, we want the most economically advantageous tenderer. And this is the type of supplier we want, and we would want to choose after the evaluation of their bids. Okay, in chapter 2.2, learning outcome 2.2, we also looked at team management technique to ensure positive stakeholder relationship. Yes, positive stakeholder relationship. We learned that managing stakeholders is very important. If we are doing anything and we want it to succeed, then we need to identify our stakeholders and manage them effectively. Because if we don't do that as a proactive measure, they can sabotage whatever you are doing. You starting a project without the knowledge of your CEO. The CEO can say, I'm not aware, so everything should stop. But once you engage them from the beginning, the project can be a success. And we learned about how we can segment our stakeholders by using the Mendel's stakeholder metrics. The Mendel's stakeholder metrics. And we also looked at how we could overcome resistance. Yes. If stakeholders are not informed or involved, they can even resist. Even when they are involved, there is some amount of resistance, but you can deal with it. There is a way we deal with resistance. Sometimes you have to inform them, you have to educate them on the need for the change. You may have to even co-opt some of them. Some of them are very stubborn. You have to co-opt them and let them be or take the lead in the change. So they can't fight what they have to defend. They can't fight against what they have to defend. So some organizations do that. Yeah. So by doing so, you can overcome resistance. You can overcome resistance to change. And we looked at the need for having soft skills. If we want to convince our stakeholders to accept what we have proposed, it can be partnership, it can be implementation of sustainability initiatives, it can be anything. We need to manage them. And we also mentioned that the stakeholders for every project are unique. The stakeholders for every project are unique, and their position within the stakeholder metrics may change for every project. We need emotional intelligence, we need empathy, we need influencing skills and relationship building skills to be able to overcome resistance. Some companies, some employees will resist because they are used to the status quo, the old ways of doing things, and they don't want to change. So once you persuade them on the merits of the change for the organization and for them, think they can buy into the idea and accept it. And you can also address any reasons for opposing the change. If they have any reason for opposing the change, it could be even fear. You can deal with it and lay their fears to rest Then we also looked at Kubler-Ross change curve, how we can use Kubler-Ross change curve to manage uh, resistance. Yes, it's more of a grief management model. Uh, so when the change comes, there is shock. It appears as a shock to everyone, and they deny that no, we don't think it's true that this change is coming. Uh, like the 11 is coming like a kite. They force it. They've tried that. Now it has come to stay. Whether we like it or not, we can't do it. You see, so shock and denial change. Then it leads to anger and depression. Yes, once you realize it is true that a change has come, you become angry, and that can even lead to depression. Uh, and over time, you will accept it and move on. Okay, so at various stages within the organization, there should be communication, especially at the shock and denial stage. Employees should be communicated to. Yes, there should be a lot of communication at this stage. And anger and depression stage also, you have to identify with your employees and let them know that you share their, depression. You share, their depression and you identify with what they are going through till they get to a point where they are no more worried about the change. Then we looked at how we can identify conflict and coping processes, looking at the restraining forces and the driving forces to change. We looked at that and also Thomas Kilmann's model in managing uh, individuals or conflict using uh, collaborating approach, competing approach, avoiding approach, accommodating, and compromising. These are all conflict resolution mechanisms. Then we also looked at the cross-organizational teams, how we can develop teams or cross-functional teams. It's very important because if you want to institute change, you need a team. If you want to develop a very good specification, you need a team. So working in a team is very important. We all bring our unique capabilities on board and enhance the quality of the decision we make at the end of the day. We looked at the stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, and performing. We need to know the order. In exams, they can mix it for you. So you would have to choose the right order. Then in Learning Outcome 2.3, we looked at accurate cost modeling. What cost modeling is. And we mentioned that cost modeling is a technique we use to identify all the cost elements in a supplier's operation. So we want to know the supplier's labor cost, um, overhead cost, material cost, direct cost, indirect cost, everything, every type of cost, fixed cost, variable cost, so that we can triangulate, we can compare their cost against other suppliers and know whether it's reasonable cost they are incurring or not. If it's not reasonable, we can advise, we can encourage them, we can help them or assist them to, uh, enhance or improve on their cost. If a supplier's cost is so low, you may ask why is it so low? Because it's below reasonable limit. If it is too high, you have to also ask questions. Why is too high compared to other suppliers? And yesterday, those doing L4M6, we looked at benchmarking. There was a particular question that had to do with benchmarking. We are comparing suppliers' prices, and that is exactly what triangulation does. So we want to understand the supplier's cost structure so that we can help them to improve on their cost performance. And that is what cost modeling is all about. And if you don't have a good relationship with the supplier will not give you accurate data or information about their cost. So you cannot help them that much. Even those that we have a very good relationship with, they still don't give us absolute figures or the correct figures. They are all cooked, but just that the accuracy could be maybe 70% or 80%. And we can still use it for our, calculations and know which course of action to take. Then we also looked at early supply involvement, and knowledge transfers and access to innovation. We need to, and you can do all when you have a very good relationship with suppliers. Early supply involvement, you can only have it with suppliers with whom you have a partnership relationship. It's not just with any supplier. Yeah, so let's take note that early supply involvement is when you involve a supplier at an early stage, and these suppliers are those suppliers that have been pre-qualified. You know their financial capability, you know their technical competence and all that. And you also have a non-disclosure agreement with them. They've signed it. So if they help you develop a specification or a new product, they have to keep quiet. They shouldn't share it with your competitors. The non-disclosure agreement binds them or stops them from sharing that information or commercially sensitive information with others without your knowledge. Then we also looked at termination and reasons for termination. You mentioned a lot. If a contract can come to an end when the parties to the contract both perform their obligation fully, yes, the contract can be terminated. One party can also terminate the contract for poor performance on the side of the other party. So a buyer can terminate the relationship if a supplier fails to deliver. A supplier can also terminate the relationship or terminate the contract if the buyer doesn't pay or pay up. Yes, if you are not paying, making payments at the right time, they may choose not to supply you anymore and terminate any contract they have with you. Termination could also happen if you try to reduce the number of suppliers you are dealing with. So instead of using 100 suppliers, you want to limit it to 10 or 20. And this is called supplier rationalization. Okay. And once you do that, it means 80 suppliers are going. So you need to terminate that relationship with them so that you can have quality relationships with the few 20 or 20 suppliers. And we looked at the process of termination. We don't just wake up and terminate. Okay, so let's proceed. So like I was saying, we don't just terminate. We need to consider a lot of factors, and you need to even inform top management whether the termination is justified. So first, identify performance issues and contract management in business approval to terminate. Top management must be convinced on whether to terminate or not. Then we have to also have an exit strategy. And as we terminate one relationship or one contract, we need to be ready to bring a new supplier on board. So we need to review the market and qualify these new suppliers and ascertain their suitability and capability. And we also learned that in termination, we need to inform the other party at least 90 days ahead of time. So 3 months notice is very important. And the same in employment contracts. You have to inform your employer
3 months ahead of time. And we also learned that when it comes to termination, it can be amicable or hostile. The termination can be amicable or hostile. Yes. And it is amicable, it could be amicable if you have a very good relationship with the supplier right from the beginning. The relationship has been very good. Then the termination could be amicable. It's not always granted because certain things might change, which might result in the termination being hostile, even though it may have been amicable, the relationship may have been amicable all as well. So we learned that we should not, you know, put our emotions in the whole thing. Yes, we need a lot of emotional intelligence when terminating contracts because these suppliers, we may need them tomorrow. If you are insulting them and calling them names, next time if you need them, yes, they didn't perform so well, but you can't be calling them names. Just terminate the relationship or the contract amicably with them and go away. You may need them another time. And we also learned that in termination, you need to look at the financial implications. If you want to terminate the contract, then you should be ready to pay all the monies you owe the supplier. You should also look at confidentiality issues. Any information you have shared with the supplier, you have to delete it from the supplier system. You have to make sure they get rid of it. If you have jointly developed an intellectual property, you have to know how you are going to manage it, whether you are going to jointly owe it or the supplier will take it or you will take it. So it has to be defined who actually owns the intellectual property and security issues as well. Employees' right, we look at that and how we can ensure continuity of supply. Very important. Yes, as you terminate the relationship with one supplier, how do you ensure that the new supplier continues to supply and ensure you always have raw materials or materials to work with? Okay. Then in chapter 3, we looked at partnership. We looked at the 3 types of partnership. Type 1, type 2, type 3. And we also looked at partnering versus traditional contracting agreement. Yes, we looked at some of the differentiating factors. Then we looked at the drivers for partnership sourcing. Drivers for partnership sourcing. And we mentioned that quality could be improvement in quality, could be the reason. Innovation could also be a reason. Enhancing our time to market is also a reason or a driver for partnership sourcing or going to partnership, amongst others. These same drivers manifest as advantages for the purchaser and the supplier as well. Then we also looked at when it is suitable to adopt partnership relationship. We said we should look at factors to consider basically when considering partnership relationship. We looked at high spend suppliers, not tail spend. So if you look at the Pareto analysis, we are looking at the vital few suppliers because they account for a substantial amount of our expenditure. So they are high spend. If it's project, we are talking about strategic suppliers. Those are the ones that we adopt partnership relationships with. And also high risk suppliers. Then we also look at suppliers with technically complex, systems. And also in a fast changing technology, we need suppliers with these systems, unique technology and capability. Those are the ones that we will go into partnership with. And these are very scarce. These are just a few suppliers. In the whole world, we get just 3 or 2 of these suppliers. And I don't think you would want to joke with them. Okay, and in learning outcome 3.2, we looked at how we could identify potentially suitable or items potentially suitable for partnership sourcing. And we mentioned that strategic items, suppliers of strategic items, qualify for partnership relationship. Very important. We also looked at the partnership life cycle, starting from embryonic to decline. We mentioned that at the embryonic stage, we need to move the relationship past any implementation, challenges or problems. Yes. So if there are resistance, or there is some level of resistance, we need to overcome that at the embryonic stage. And at the growth stage, we apply all our traditional management skills required, including controlling, including problem solving, even measurements, performance measurements, amongst others. Then at the maturity level, we develop the relationship, going forward and making decisions to do what, to deliver. So we don't decline. The relationship doesn't decline. It shouldn't decline. It should continue further. It shouldn't decline. Once it starts declining, then there's a problem. So we looked at that. And we looked at how we could sell the philosophy to senior management and other functions of the organization. Learn that before we adopt partnership relationship, we need to appraise our suppliers, check their their capabilities. We can use the Carter's 10Cs I've already explained to do that. The cash, culture, competence, capacity, and all that. We also want to know how ethical the suppliers, and also ascertain the suppliers' management interest. Are they even interested in partnership? Because you may want to have a partnership relationship with a supplier, but the supplier doesn't need that relationship. They think they don't need it. They are not interested in a partnership relationship, even though the supplier may see you as a core customer. They may still not be interested. So you should first identify the supplier's management interest. Yes, if they are interested, then the relationship can start. Okay, so you first sell the philosophy to senior management or top management, and you need a business case to sell this philosophy. You need to develop a business case, the work plan, the implementation plan, your sourcing strategy, your long-term strategy. You need an executive summary. You need a cost-benefit analysis, the benefits for partnership, the cost, the financial plan, amongst others. So you sell the philosophy to senior managers, and you also sell the philosophy to functional areas. So the different of the various functions, operations, marketing, finance, engineering. You sell this philosophy to them. And if they have any concerns or fears, it will have to be addressed before the implementation. And because it's a change management program, we can adopt the Carter's 8-step change management model to manage any change related issues in the organization. Then we can also sell the philosophy to suppliers. I also mentioned that suppliers can also do same proposal. You may not be the initiator. The suppliers may identify an opportunity to go into a relationship with you, the buyer, also. And they may rather be selling the idea to the procurement entity or the buying organization. So let's take note. Then we also need to define standards in our partnership relationship. Yes, we need to define standards. It's against these standards that we are going to measure our performance. So commitment to total quality management, ability to apply just-in-time method, and ability to even provide supplies locally and globally. Yes, we are looking at a supplier who can do that. And the supplier's willingness to take part in innovative programs. So we invest in innovation programs or quality improvement programs. And we also need some kind of flexibility, with our suppliers. They have to be agile. And then we looked at the requirements of partnership. We learned that trust, communication, commitment, they are all part of it. But should a partnership relationship be just left just like that? No, it has to be governed. There should be rules, or they call it partnership charter. Yes, there should be a formal partnership agreement so that we all know our responsibilities, our obligations, and the level of commitment required. There is a charter, but the charter is friendly. It's not too strict like a traditional contract, where if you don't do A or B, the contract will be terminated, or the supplier will be punished, or liquidated damages may apply and all that. No. And even in a formal partnership agreement, there is some level of flexibility because we are talking about a collaborative relationship and not a competitive relationship. Okay, so commitment is very important, but there should be a guiding framework. There should be some level of governance as well, and joint objective setting. We need to also jointly set objectives. Key performance indicators. One person does not set it. The buyer sets key performance indicators without the knowledge of the supplier. No, you do all that together. That's why when you look at the relationship spectrum, there is joint problem solving in partnership. It's joint problem solving. Then there are also periods for review and audits. We have to audit it and know what we are doing right and what we are not doing right, how we can improve on our transparency, communication, trust, information sharing, amongst others. Then lastly, we looked at reasons why partnerships fail. Reasons why partnerships fail. And we learned that a partnership will fail if we don't communicate our expectations. Is one. If you don't tell the supplier what you expect, if the supplier doesn't tell you what they expect, and they only assume that you know what they want, if they don't get it in the relationship, they may be so disillusioned, or they may regret ever entering into a partnership relationship. So expectations that are not communicated could also result in partnership failing. So expectations must be communicated. What do we expect, or what do I expect from the supplier? What does the supplier also expect from me? We are both aware. Now, yes, a supplier may become complacent with performance, and that may result in the relationship failing. If the supplier fails to improve its performance, or the buyer fails to improve its performance, yes, the supplier can equally also terminate the relationship. It's very important. Changing the market. So it could be a new supplier emerging, whom you think is better than the existing supplier with whom you have a partnership relationship. You may want to switch. The supplier may also do same. Maybe a better buyer or customer may enter the market. They may want to go into a relationship with that person, and they may start doing certain things just to make you terminate the relationship. So that is also one. Now, if trust is not there, the lack of trust, if trust goes down, the relationship will fail. If communication is poor, the relationship will fail, amongst others. So you can add a lot. There are so many reasons why relationships fail. If top management does not support the partnership, it will fail. Poor planning. If there is no formal agreement, or partnership charter, the partnership will fail. If we don't realize our expectations in the partnership, we want quality to improve, but quality didn't improve. We want innovation to improve, but innovation didn't improve after going into the partnership. So why do we stay in it? We terminate the relationship and find something else. If the supplier's culture changes, the supplier used to have a quality culture. We also have a quality culture. So we saw some compatibility in our culture and we are working together. Now, if the supplier's culture changes from quality to delivery, we've become incompatible. And that will also result in the partnership relationship failing. Okay, so there are so many reasons why a partnership relationship will fail. Now that we are done, we can now begin to answer the questions. We can now begin to answer the questions. Yes, so please, I want someone with a sweet voice to read the questions for us.
I don't know if my voice is sweet, but sweet enough. But I would like to volunteer.
You volunteer, go ahead.
Come again.
Oh, you can go ahead. You can read
All right.
for us.
Okay,
your voice
sure. All right then. Okay, so question 1. Drag and drop the stages into the correct order for how individuals often react to change. Start with the first at the top. The
Hello?
options.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Please, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, Angie, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. So A, confusion. B, denial. C, acceptance. D, crisis. E, anger.
Hello?
Hello, Chris, we can hear you.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you too.
Hello, Chris, I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, Chris.